why would it occur to you to uninstall the Bluetooth stack on a Linux machine just because people tell you that you have freedom to customize when you wouldn't do that? I mean, for the distribution, I'm sure that he was trying to remove it from GNOME, looks like.
Yeah, well, that stuff's really tied together, yeah.
Yeah, it's integrated into the system unless you roll your own in Arch or Gentoo. Like, I don't have Bluetooth on my laptop just yet because I haven't rolled it in. But on Ubuntu, it would be rolled in for me. Why would you undo it? Freedom to customize, I feel like, is not really for.
But even if you undid
Ubuntu.
the back end stuff, it's still going to exist in the GUI settings and stuff. Probably, I don't think it would totally go away unless it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't. I have a Bluetooth section over here, but it doesn't work.
Right, and that's fair because like there are obviously a lot of machines that don't have Bluetooth, right? But
I get it.
In the GNOME desktop, it's built in there, just like it is in Windows, just like you said. Because it's they designed around it, at least as far as the UI.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it needs to exist somehow. Coming up in this episode, the Linux desktop is best. There are humans on the other end of the internet. We do some browser spectating, and Gentoo loses their mind. Hello and welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Dan.
And I'm Leo.
Little break. Boy, are the cobwebs there. Let's try and clear those so we can do an episode, huh?
Nope. Everybody's gonna have to just come in here and enjoy the cobwebs with us.
All right. Well, we'll blow those out of the way, and here we go.
My eyes.
So, Leo, one of my teammates over in Lubuntu land wrote a bit of a controversial thing on Mastodon, looking to get some feedback. Essentially, well, before I spoil it, so the question really is, so why don't you use Linux, right? And the implication was the Linux desktop. Why don't you use the Linux desktop? This is from Aaron Rainbolt, and I think ultimately Aaron was looking to kind of address some of those things, at least as far as Lubuntu. What's holding you back from using Linux as a desktop on a full-time basis? And so it's a valid question. It was a poll, and I'll have a link to it, and you can go find it over on Mastodon.
Yeah, his post said, what is it about the Linux distros you tried that made it or them unsuitable for you to use? If some problem or set of problems was fully resolved, would it be enough for you to be able to comfortably use Linux? It was a poll on the internet. You could choose too buggy, too unfamiliar, lacking any good alternatives to critical software, lacking critical software or alternatives aren't an option, overwhelming number of choices, as we see with this poll itself, incompatible with media I use, incompatible with my computer, simply didn't like it, or other, or what's Linux?
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah, he did hashtag Windows and Mac OS, so at least on Mastodon, it kind of it proliferated a little further out than just hashtag Linux, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, and it should. It's a good question. And obviously those are the people that you really want to send it to, and it also got posted on Twitter and it's in Reddit land as well. So you may have seen it around, and if not, I'll definitely link it back to the Mastodon post that started it all.
Yeah. When you look at the poll itself, or at least the one on Mastodon, because I saw this on Mastodon, I just I'm a little insular when it comes to social media, especially lately, because we've got the Lemmy and we've got the Mastodon, and I've really kind of fully embraced those, and I forget on a regular basis to post this stuff on Linux User Space over to Twitter. Oops. So
fair.
So anyway, so I was looking at the Mastodon one, and the lacking critical software, alternatives aren't an option was the most popular by far at 28%. The next was 21%, and that was a comment. So it was probably a permutation of one or two or three or four of those options.
Right.
And that's, as soon as I got reading it, I didn't even have to read the options. That was number one.
That's number one on your list.
Exactly
right?
what I was going to say. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I can't get Photoshop. Well, I can't get my games to work. I can't get. And it seems like most people agree that software is the main driver that keeps them away.
And I think that's a fair criticism. However, I would say the gap is definitely closing, right? We see things all the time. And we also see alternatives. And I guess sometimes while there are comparisons and lists and tables and all sorts of stuff out there to kind of highlight, how certain pieces of software, that you would use in Mac OS or Linux or Windows are available as an alternative potentially in Linux. There's comparisons to get all of that together. I think one of the things that you and I try to do oftentimes on this show is highlight software that is available on all three platforms, at least all three of those platforms on a regular. That way, the platform that you choose is not standing in your way from using the software, I guess, right? So you can't you can't say that, it's just not available for me. Well, it is, because
right.
That's what we're trying.
Yeah, and we haven't done an app focus in a little while, but I told Dan the next time we do an app focus, I'm going to focus on local send, because this is another one of those apps that is absolutely 100% cross-platform. It works on absolutely everything. I toss files from my phone where I record video. I toss files from my laptop where I record the audio, all to my desktop where I do the editing. And it's such a seamless experience that it is irrelevant what operating system, if I'm using Windows to record on in Audacity that day, or if I'm on Linux, or if I'm on iOS, or I just have a lingering Android device that I'm using, or if I'm just on my Mac that day, whatever it is, it's a huge focus for me. But I think a lot of that comes from Linux as an afterthought for a lot of companies a lot of times, but not for the local send people. And that's why I use local send. That's why I've donated to local send. That's why I continue to look for software. Vivaldi's another one, but that's later. That I just absolutely have to use because it's everywhere. And it's device agnostic, machine agnostic, and it does not care what I use. That's super important to me. But I think it's coming from that, it wasn't available on Linux, so now I have to find something that's compatible. And now that's just kind of been part of my ethos.
Right. And so,
but it works.
Definitely that's one of the things that we try to highlight is there are things that, are multi-platform available, and we try to highlight that. We try to at least test them, to know if the functionality is wildly different between them. And for the most part, no. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But I guess that could be too, especially like you said, when Linux is not one of the thoughts and tests. It's not something that's getting tested. They're just creating software for one of the other, Windows or Mac OS, and then just tossing it over the fence to the Linux users. It may have problems, and that could sour your experience, right?
Oh, sure.
And if you're having a bad experience, if you have one bad experience, like especially on the first time, that might spoil it forever. I think, there's definitely that crowd out there that has had a bad time and they never want to revisit it again because it was such a bad time for them. I guess for those folks, I just want to say, sorry you feel that way, but that's really unfortunate because I think there's a lot of benefits that you can get from using the Linux desktop.
Yeah, things change, man. Especially, I mean, we've been talking about Wayland for quite a little while now, and that's one of those things that are a changing.
Right.
And I mean, for better or for worse, you have to poke it a little bit. I had a conversation on the internet about Wayland and its inability to be deployed for this person on a wider network of, more than one machine, right? And one of the things that was holding it back was AnyDesk. AnyDesk does not support Wayland, but it's not impossible. And I think that's the impression that a lot of people get when they run AnyDesk and they see, or any software, and they see it's not Wayland compatible. I get that that's the one that they want to use, but a lot of times they just blame it on Wayland.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, I guess you could, but when Rust Desk works just fine using the Wayland protocol, then I don't think it's a Wayland problem that they're holding on to X, but I get it, right? Because there's development cost in having to retool to get onto Wayland. It's not, it's not some zero-sum game or anything like that. But it's just that any desk will support Wayland eventually because the entire everybody's moving to Wayland. I mean, Red Hat dropped X, like an X server in RHEL 10. So,
which is a ways away. Like it's a ways away. I get it, but it's happening.
And RHEL 9 will be supported for years and years and years to come. So it's not like X is going anywhere. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But we're moving on.
Yeah.
Wayland will be the target and eventually will be the only target. So any desk will happen.
Right.
It will be Wayland, but it's just not Wayland yet. So I think you get the perception, though, that when you're using any desk and then you try to move to the newer software and it just doesn't support it, that it's the software, like the Wayland stack, that's at fault and not necessarily any desk. And I don't think there's fault there.
Right.
I just think that you need a little more time to bake. And that's perfectly fine. That's what the LTSs are for. That's what, that's what the LTSs are for. Stick on the LTS. If you need software to be able to count on that software for years and years, that's the point. Right.
Well, and I'll say, like, distributions will get lumped into the blame, category as well. Oftentimes,
for the same reasons.
For the same reasons, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I'm not suggesting that people should, shuffle around and do the distro hop dance all over the place, because that could be frustrating as well. So that's not a great suggestion. And I know that some people take exception to that. I have a Reddit post here that's a response that's not safe for work, if you will.
So we won't quote it directly.
I won't quote it directly. However, it is. I'm basically paraphrasing some of that, right? And I don't think it, as salty as the post is, it's somewhat justified, and I can totally appreciate and understand their view.
Oh yeah.
But it may lack, and I don't mean this to be critical necessarily, it may lack the ability to have an open mind, I guess, in some regard.
All right, so lay it on me. Why can this person not move over?
Oh, just because they thought it was terrible. They basically had a bad experience. Lots of incomplete things. And yes, all of this equates to software, but I think a lot of their point was specifically software that is part of the OS, okay? And in regards to that, one of the examples that they cited was that they wanted to remove the Bluetooth package or Bluetooth backend, I guess, because their machine is a desktop and it doesn't have any Bluetooth. Well, that's fantastic.
And you can't take away my freedom.
Yeah, no, and freedom is a thing. It's supposed to be what you have, but I don't know that some of those core things necessarily should be removed. I mean, I guess you could look at Gentoo potentially and just not compile the Bluetooth components alongside of it. Maybe. But does that mean that the GNOME desktop would have a blank space where it says Bluetooth? No, I don't think so. I think it's still going to be there, and it just won't do anything. So you can't totally write it out of there.
Before you go on, hold on. I can take on the answer to that question because I have a Gentoo machine that I haven't compiled Bluetooth on yet. And yeah, when you open up settings, you go in the left and you can see where the Bluetooth should be, and you click on Bluetooth, and it's just like, no Bluetooth modules. I don't know what you want me to do here.
No.
And so it's just got a little Bluetooth logo, and that's it.
Yeah, but the menu is still there, and it's not totally wiped away from the machine. So, nor would I expect it to be, because guess what? In the other platforms that we mentioned, Windows and Mac OS, it still exists there too. And and you may have a machine that doesn't have Bluetooth or it's disabled or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but this goes into that wider conversation that I've had in the chats, in our own chats, that I'm very much in favor of bloat. And that sounds controversial, but I don't think it really is when you peel it back to what it really means.
Yeah.
Bloat is just what the operating system is, and that a singular user has decided that that's too much. And I feel like that's the first step before someone is like, well, by the way, Arch.
Yeah.
Because when you end up in a situation like that, you're like, well, Ubuntu is too full fat for me. I need something slimmer. It's okay to de-bloat when you're building it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're taking
Building
an Ubuntu,
it for the mass?
Yeah, but when you're taking as a user, when you're taking Ubuntu and you're deciding that Ubuntu adds too many things, I think you're out of the use case now of what Ubuntu is trying to target. You're no longer the target audience for an Ubuntu. I think people that use an Ubuntu are meant to just accept the bloat. Right. And I don't even necessarily think it's bloat. I think it's just the system.
Yeah.
When you start thinking in those terms of, well, this is bloat and this is bloat, and I'm going to take this off because freedom, I don't think that's what freedom meant. I think freedom that we're talking about is more freedom.
It does, but boy, you're really going to get in there and start doing some heavy patching in order to make that happen. But I guess you're welcome to fork all that stuff and go to town and start hacking away at it and removing all the Bluetooth components that are in the GNOME desktop. But that doesn't sound trivial to me. And I've seen some of those things, and I wouldn't want to go there.
I guess I need to see what he was seeing about the Bluetooth thing.
Right.
Because it sounded like the whole entire system melted down.
and maybe it would. Maybe there is a heavy dependency with the GNOME desktop on the thing that he was trying to remove.
Well, I guess if you're trying to target modern laptops, all modern laptops have Bluetooth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's heavily used.
Yeah, yeah, of course it is. Now, whether or not Bluetooth is functional all the time, every time, that's a different conversation.
Oh, well.
And I've had my run-ins with that, and that's been hurtful.
Yeah.
Not amazing.
It's not always as convenient as you hope for, that's for sure.
When you turn on your Bluetooth thing and it doesn't just automatically connect when it's the only thing it's ever connected to, or the experience could be better.
Yeah, when you say, "Can you hear me now?" a whole bunch of times, it might not be going well for you.
I don't know. I think the whole thing really does boil down to software. I know that there are issues like with BlueZ and Blueberry and all the Bluetooth things that can be a little hit and miss. But I think that's exactly why I use all the things. I use all the things. I don't think I've said that too terribly loud on the show, but I use all the things. As far as the show is concerned, I use a Linux stack to record and edit and all that kind of stuff, unless for some reason I accidentally blew up my Ubuntu that day.
Yeah.
So I'll say 99.5% of all the episodes have been done in Linux, but the vast majority of everybody else is just because the software is not there. Not because their onboarding experience was particularly bad or anything like that. Because, I think there's something that you have to do with Linux that you don't have to do with any operating system, and I think it's the real crux of the argument that says that Linux would get popular if you could buy one from Walmart or from.
They tried that.
Yeah, well, no, they didn't. No, they didn't, because everybody hated e-machines with Windows on it too.
Yeah, I know. The machines that got sold like that at Walmart were terrible.
Right, and I think that's why the framework does as well as it does, because it's a premium laptop, but you can put Linux on it, and I think there's an option for people to just put their operating system on it. But
yeah, it's a bit more of a first-class citizen there, in that they don't necessarily ship it with Linux on it, but they do some testing, and they're happy to work on issues that are related to Linux, right? So yes, I agree with that.
If we're gonna compare it to phones, right? Like it's taken an Apple phone, a new within 3 or 5 years Apple phone, and then within 3 or 5 years Android phone, and then putting it up against a Nexus 5 with USB ports on it, because that's what USB ports runs on. I know it runs on more, but you have these huge hardware discrepancies between the different offerings, and it's gonna color your decision if you buy it off the shelf like that.
Yep.
So I don't think we've done it. Not in a Dell front page, half of the page when you get on there kind of way. We haven't done that. Walmart doesn't have a $1,000 laptop.
Yeah, or Best Buy or Micro Center or any of those, right? Because that might be a better place to try to target some of that stuff, at least to start with, is like the Best Buys or the Micro Centers or someplace like that, where it's technology first. And so Walmart, I don't know, they're going
to end up like that girl that got the laptop for Ubuntu 6.04 or whatever for college, and it like didn't read a DVD or something.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, this is not right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, that wouldn't be the greatest place to target, I think, initially, because it's not the right market, if you will.
Yeah, it's not.
But eventually, maybe someday. I don't know when that is, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think there's also an undertone of you just have to kind of care. You have to kind of care about the operating system on your machine, because otherwise, why would you even consider it? Why is it even an option? You can't buy it from a shelf. So,
but you can. I mean, there are obviously the vendors that sell things with Linux on them, right?
Yeah, but because it's not a front page thing, you have to know about it in the first place to go searching for it.
Yeah, you have to have an interest. Yeah.
It's not in the public conscious. It's not a thing. So
yeah, you don't see billboards up there that, are raving about the tuxedo.
Except with Lindos, they just got sued into the ground though. They're Linspire now and FreeSpire.
That might not be great though. Yeah.
I want to do a history episode on those guys because they're pretty fantastic, and the guy behind them, it might be a little rough around the edges, but he's pretty fantastic too.
Sure.
He's the one that said, if you bought a super premium, super duper Lindos license, years and years and years and years later, he's like, yeah, I'll still honor that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what? Okay, that's really really cool. So I do want to go back and do something about them because that would be fun. But yeah, I think that's it, man. It's not in front of you, so you've probably never even considered it. I'm surprised that the what's Linux option wasn't
higher.
Yeah, seriously. But maybe you've heard of it, right? But never even considered running it. And if you do consider running it, the first thing you're going to run into is the fact that all your software is not going to be immediately available to you. You can't get Apple Music on it.
Right.
I mean, you have to know the different software ways to get Spotify on it, and that's already half the reason people run computers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of those, I mean, there's like alternatives, right? Yeah. I mean, so like, I don't know if it still works or not, but like Cider was an option, right, for your Apple Music, right?
Oh, I paid money for that one. That one's fantastic, and I have an RPM, I have a Deb, I have a Windows executable, I have a DMG. Oh yeah, that was worth what was it, like $3 or something?
Right. So
100% worth it.
So totally exists, but you have to know that.
Yeah, but you got to know.
You have to know that it exists, or right? And so I think that's half the battle, is getting the education and piece component out there that, hey, most of those things that you are trying to do, you can do. It's just not named the same sometimes, and it still works just as well, maybe better even. There's better tools.
Well, it doesn't help that we name things Conqueror,
No.
Not that Firefox means web browsing, but
right. Yeah, no, naming is kind of crud, but there's all options.
I don't think it's bad. I just think we need to get away from this idea that software needs to say the name of the thing that it is.
That's true.
There's a description for that, but Yep,
I do.
Anyhow, why don't you use Linux? This is kind of a weird question come from a Linux podcast that you're listening to on whatever it is that you're listening to it on. So you probably do use Linux, but if you're not maining Linux, if Linux is not 51% of your computer usage, how come?
Yeah, what
is it?
Yeah, what's holding you back? What's keeping you away?
Is it the software? Please say yes so that I can be right.
Oh man, you got to say no now.
Okay, let me see. How do I do housekeeping? How does that even work? Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, this doesn't apply to you, but we're on YouTube. If you're watching the history thing on TILvids, this also doesn't apply to you, but we're on TILvids too. And of course, if you like the stuff, if you like our insane, obviously way too long ramblings, The fact that we get cobwebs at least 2 times a season. If you like all that stuff, if you like the, I don't know, the opinions, the work that we put into it, the content that comes out of it, the community aspect, any of that part, any of that stuff, if you like it, there's always Patreon, patreon.com/Linux user space. But everywhere else, I mean, all the other stuff, just type in Linux user space. There's a good chance you'll find us probably on the top of the list if you're not on the Googles. I don't know if I haven't used Google search in a long time, so we might be on top up there. But, go find us and watch us and listen to us and stuff like that. So, there we go. Housekeeping with the cobwebs on.
Yeah, browser watch. So Firefox, we've had a couple of releases, honestly. So what 120 now has the copy link without tracking feature. So when you right click on something and you copy a link, in theory, it should remove all of the super janky tracking stuff that ties that link to you.
Yeah, that's gross, by the way. I hated it.
Gross. And it saves, from manually or adding an extension from manually editing the links that you copy and paste. Or, I think there are some extensions that will do this for you as well, but it saves you installing those. And I think it's a great feature to be added. Really do.
I think that's where the browser wars are at now. It's features of the browser and not.
That's good.
I can render this page 2% faster because 2% means like 0.001 milliseconds now, so It doesn't really matter that much. But this is a super important thing for me because it doesn't matter what it is. If it says, if there's a question mark in the URL, that's the trigger, and I am triggered. And I'm like, no, delete all of that before I send it to somebody. And if I accidentally just, absentmindedly copy paste into a chat or whatever, I'll go in and edit it. I'm like, absolutely not. I don't need you to be tied to me when you go look at the thing that I told you to go look at. No, I absolutely hate the tracking in it. And this browser watch is going to be a lot about tracking, or at least the first half of it will be.
Indeed.
I hate it.
It's annoying.
So I think that Firefox is doing a pretty good job with this.
I do too.
But it doesn't have the click-through thing. So if you go straight to Amazon, you find something on Amazon, and you copy link without tracking, which is you right-click in the URL bar to get the link, or you right-click on the product that you want to link to somebody, and you do the copy link without tracking, and then you send it to them. It will strip out all of that whole, well, they found the original item from searching in the Amazon bar, and then, or they found it in the app and all, right? So it loses all of that tracking. There's still some references in there, but by and large, it rips out a lot of the tracking stuff. Yeah. Now, the thing that it doesn't do, and I think DuckDuckGo may get like affiliate funding from this. So if you do the shopping tab in DuckDuckGo after you looked because Focusrite is now getting support in the Linux kernel in 6.8, right? And that's this. I have that now, and it's going to be supported by yay. So when I take the Focusrite and I search it in DuckDuckGo, and then I click on shopping, or if it just immediately shows me some Amazon links or whatever, and you click on that, that's got a DuckDuckGo URL to it, and it tunnels through some kind of DuckDuckGo something or other to do tracking on DuckDuckGo's end. Firefox doesn't fix those.
Almost like the YouTube links, if you put them down in the comment or the description section, right? They always reference YouTube, and then they go, there's like a refer sort of thing going on there.
Right. Yeah. This is so YouTube can track you, but on the other end, there may or may not be tracking because we don't know what YouTube is presenting to the other end.
Right.
So DuckDuckGo is doing a little bit of that. I'm not a fan of that, but I like DuckDuckGo, and I trust that they are not allowing Amazon to then track me after that.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't do a lot of shopping from DuckDuckGo. I'll just be honestly. So
I
I don't
don't
think
think
that
the
actually.
browser is the place that you typically do. I mean, you usually go to your vendor site and start from there, right?
You do, Dan, but as we have established, we also use Linux and nobody else does. So
Yeah, we're
we do things differently.
we do
here.
things differently. I'm not going to deny.
Yeah.
Yep, you're
To
right.
be honest with you, I think there's a huge contingent of people that Google something in Google and then click on the first thing that comes
The
up because it looks
sponsored
like
ad.
a cheap. Yeah, it looks like a cheap price, and then there's like a gajillion pounds of tracking on that takes you to the website, which
And they're off to
continually tracking
Temu
you.
or Alibaba or whatever. Yeah, right.
Good God, don't do that. Don't. That's how you get a 2 terabyte flash drive filled with lead. That's really just a 64 gig flash drive. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Amazon's bad about that already.
Oh, I know.
And yeah, thankfully there's I forget the name of the app, but it's a Windows only app, but it'll actually write everything. It'll figure out how big your drive actually is.
Yeah.
Vera drive, Vera something like that drive. I'll find it. I'll let you know eventually. But there's something that'll tell you. Anyway, don't do that. But anyway, for the most part, copy link without tracking does work. I really enjoy it. I use it when I can. If it fails, I fix it because I'm just that kind of guy. But I appreciate that regular folks do have the option.
It catches you more than not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then there's global privacy protection. So there's a bit of history with this one. It started with the passing of GDPR in 2016 in the EU basically said that, you have to get people's consent to track them. And that spawned in the entire cookie banner thing where it's like, do you want to accept these or accept these? That's really what it boiled down to, man. They tricked people and they continually trick people. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because we got that in the US, whether we asked for it or not. Our government didn't mandate any of that, but we got it anyway. And there are ways that we in the US can now opt out of a lot of the tracking, which is great. And then there was a kind of an industry iteration on that called the Do Not Track flag,
right?
That you could enable in many of the browsers. Even Chrome supports it.
I know.
That's how pervasive it is. Even Google Chrome supports the Do Not Track flag, and it's basically a signal that you turn on in your browser that tells any website that you go to, don't track me. It's kind of a bad signal now because it's not on by default, so it's only the security conscious, and those are the kinds of people that you probably do want to track. So the signal is really the opposite of what it really means, because the industry didn't have to follow it. Amazon could see the Do Not Track flag and be like, "Oh, I'm going to track you extra hard now." So there was no teeth behind it. But now, Germany has legal backing for Do Not Track. So in Germany, it is now illegal to track people when they have the flag on. Now, this is an extension of the GDPR and the Do Not Track, and now there's legal teeth behind tracking people, at least in Germany. Tracking people.
Yeah, internet's global, so.
That's why we got the benefit/horror of the GDPR cookie banners, right?
Right.
I'd see what they were trying to do, and it was good in spirit, but it really served to annoy absolutely everybody, and then you just open the door to tracking everybody all the time because nobody cared about it and just hit accept, right? And I think this is absolutely fantastic, but it's not there yet. Firefox supports it.
Right.
That's really what that's what this is really all about. The new feature in Firefox 120, I know this is 121, but in 120, Firefox now supports in private mode in Germany. You can now surf privately, and the cookie banners
are gone.
Will be blocked automatically.
I know.
Yeah. So if you have DNT on, Do Not Track, and you're in a private mode, in Germany, you won't even see the banners.
Which is beautiful. I mean, I know there's extensions and stuff that you can install to kind of mitigate some of that.
Privacy Badger. EFF, thanks.
Yeah, no. And that works fantastic.
uBlock Origin. Oh, yeah, Gorhill, thanks.
Yeah, uBlock.
You got to turn it on there, though.
You do. I turned a bunch of things on in uBlock, honestly, and that is one of them. So.
But I think it's smart to do that at the browser level. I think it's absolutely 100% smart to do that because, I mean, we saw the stats years ago that only like 15% of people actually install extensions.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
some crazy small number of people actually install extensions. So having it at the browser level is the right move, I think. And then if you don't want it or whatever, you can just turn it off.
Right.
But right now you can turn it on. So this whole cookie banner blocking thing, you can actually go in and turn that on a per website basis, or you can go in and just turn it on globally. So fantastic.
I think it's beautiful.
Things that are happening in Germany, things that are happening in the EU have a much, much wider impact. And I appreciate that because I don't think we're doing a whole lot about that over here.
We are not.
And we should, but we're not. And I appreciate any movement of the needle toward privacy.
Or at least the option of, yeah.
Yeah. The cynical Leo in me says that cookies are going away anyway because Google is forcing it. So that's why this legislation, and that's why the websites that are really doing the tracking here are so, oh, okay, sure, yeah, we'll do that. But still, it's a good move regardless, because even when Flock, or not Flock, it's the next iteration that was basically Flock but slightly better. When that really does truly take hold, there will still be websites out there doing cookies and stuff like that. So this is going to help with that, and I really, really do appreciate that. So get rid of your cookie banners, get some more privacy, and yeah, don't rope other people into this whole privacy mess by using the copy link without tracking. It's super important. But more Linux-centric Ubuntu users.
Yeah, so this final point here for 120. Users on Ubuntu that now can now import from Chromium when both are installed as snaps. So
that's like the bookmarks and stuff?
Yeah, so like your bookmarks, any safe passwords, any of, all of the stuff that you save, maybe potentially in your browser, you can now export that from Chromium, import that into Firefox, even if they're snaps, because obviously that stuff gets stored in a different place, and so now the import and export things work like they should.
That's pretty cool. They got to be snaps, but if you're on Ubuntu, they probably already are. So
both of them are on Ubuntu, so that was the sticking point, right? And I think there was some ability to import from other things into the Firefox snap already. So this sort of, closes the hole, if you will, and gets it all firmed up, I believe.
Pretty cool. And finally in Firefox 121. So yeah, 120 came out in like November or something.
The end of, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So we could have covered it, we didn't cover it. But anyway, so that's 120. And in 121, Firefox on Linux, if you're on a Wayland desktop, Firefox is now Wayland by default. And of course, if you're on X or whatever, it will fall back to using X or X Wayland or something like that. If for some reason it can't use Wayland, it'll work. But it's huge for me. For me personally, it's huge because on my framework, I scale at 1.5. And if I'm opening up Firefox from the tarball, it was X Wayland, and that meant that everything was blurry. But now, since Firefox 121, which is the one you get now if you go download,
right?
Well, okay, probably by the time you hear this is 122, but whatever. Now, when you go get a Firefox, it will be Wayland first if Wayland is available, and that means that I don't have to go into about:config.
Yeah, go change it,
force it.
Yeah.
So that makes my life a little bit easier, and I don't have to worry about it, and I can use the tarball at my leisure.
And it's working to be the norm in some places, so it's good to probably try to do that out of the gate.
Yep. And I think Ubuntu had a lot to do with this because the snap has been Wayland first for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
So for months at least, if not longer.
Quite a little while.
Yep. Because you open up Firefox on a freshly installed Ubuntu on a scaled desktop, and it looks correct. So they've been doing it for quite a long time, and I really, really appreciate that.
Yep.
Even though I appreciate not using a browser in a containerized format, having a browser that wasn't trash looking out of the box.
It
was
needs to
really
look good
nice.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, that previous conversation about, why don't you use Linux? That could be part of it. So yeah. So if it looks good, it looks good.
Absolutely. And so one final thing is now you can force underline for all links that you have, and that's an option. Yeah.
With my glasses, I can see the screen well, but there's no type of assistive technology to help you to look at links when the text is black and the link is black and there's no underline under the link. You just kind of have to guess.
Right.
That was a link
or
something.
You're hovering all around the page, trying to find where the links are and stuff.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, that's annoying.
Absolutely not. So this is a cool feature in Firefox that allows you to force an underline under all links all the time. Now, it doesn't help, I guess, if all the text is underlined, but the fact that you can do that, the fact that you can highlight a link outside of a sea of text is extremely important to me. So, yep. You better believe I turned that one on before we got into the show here today.
Oh, cool. So, and to round out the browser watch, a little Vivaldi news. 6.5 was, introduced. And with that came a new sessions panel. And so this is kind of a cool thing. Basically, sessions are a way for you to store all your open tabs and start over with a clean slate. The cool thing with the sessions basically let you store your state and then save it. And then, when you come back, you can start right where you were. And you can even have, multiple sessions and they all show up, as you save them. It can do auto save some of your sessions too. So, you don't absolutely lose everything necessarily. It saves them like once an hour kind of thing. And so you can try to get back to, where you were with all your tabs and all your whole workspace basically can jump right back into it. I think this is kind of a neat feature to have.
It's super important to me because I end up in these weird rabbit holes, and Firefox is okay at handling it.
It is.
What I can't stand is when you have so many tabs up at the top that it no longer has words because they're so scrunched in and it's just icons. At that point, I'm lost. Because I'll have 3 of the same icon up there, and I'm like, well, which one? And I know that I can click on them all and find them, and the most recent is on the right. But if you've seen some of the history rabbit holes I've gone down, you realize pretty quickly that at the point at which they are opened is not the only indicator of which one I want to go back through them. So when there's no text, I've lost all context. And this is a way for me to save my personal session
right
into one of the Vivaldi sessions and leave that off over here, and then open up a new session where it's only digging into the weeds of a Wikipedia post or a history or whatever. And it allows me to swap between the two. And I know you can kind of do that with workspaces, but this is I think more my speed.
But I guess the other thing is I think Vivaldi's really taking a hard look at some of these things and trying to come up with solutions that fit in a lot of different ways. So you've got you got the tiled tabs, you got the stacked tabs is another way. You can have your vertical tabs. All of those things are options, right, to help people try to get their organization stuff going. And then this just adds another way that I think, the sessions, you can save your session on top of that and have a couple of those going too. So I think this is a good step in that same direction in functionality and usability and, delivering that first class experience in the way all of your tabs and stuff are managed.
Yeah, I don't need workspaces on Firefox. What I need is sessions. This is something that I do need in Firefox because it would really help me kind of gather my thoughts and then put away the things that I don't need at the time, and then just kind of focus. Because I'm one of those kinds of people that I'll get distracted easily. In a history or whatever, I'll just get distracted on something random and then find myself an hour later saying, "Oops." Well, that was a little bit of wasted time, but I learned something.
Yeah.
That is not relevant at all.
Yeah. And by the way, I got to get back to work. So let me relaunch
Yeah.
that session that I was doing there, right?
Yeah. So if there's a very like binary way of saying, you know, this is what I'm working on right now, that would help a whole lot. So I'd like to see that in Firefox, but I'm really proud that Vivaldi has it in there.
Yep. I think it's cool.
Then there's also Vivaldi Sync.
That's been a thing for a while, but they've made some improvements here that I think are huge, that were holding people back.
Right. Vivaldi Sync only did history, typed history, specifically typed history. If you typed it in, then it would sync. Searching and the actual, you know, www addresses you typed into the address field, that would sync. But now, and it's not just that the history, all of the history, all the stuff that you did. Firefox already did this. This is why I loved them for it.
Right.
Vivaldi now does all your history, syncs all of it. But it also, and this is the sticking point for me, all encrypted in the back end when syncing between devices.
Yeah, and much like one of the, like, I love the way Firefox does its syncing, and so this sounds like identical to the way that that works, and so I can only imagine that people are going to love this too, and that, like, if I'm on my phone, I can actually even see tabs that I have open on my desktop and pull them open on my phone. And that's a really, really handy thing to be able to navigate stuff. Like, I know, like, I can go into the living room and sit in front of the TV with just, a tablet or a phone or whatever. And I can say, oh, what was that thing that I was looking at on my desktop?
Yeah.
And I can pull it up and then there it is. Yeah.
That's super important. Firefox has done that for a very, very long time. I think the only real other analog to that is the Apple stuff.
Right.
Safari will do that for you. But no, I mean, the only open up until Vivaldi here recently, and they're getting better. They're not just not quite one-to-one just yet. But the real open analog was Firefox for the longest time.
So this is good to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it. Oh, so this is the thing that kind of gets me. Me and Dan were talking about this prior to the show, because I was talking about how there's no. I like Markdown. I like it a lot, but it's not everything I want all the time. So sometimes when I'm writing, like not just getting facts straight and adding in links for references and stuff like that. When I'm just writing, I'd like a cleaner interface. I'd like a non-monospaced experience. I would kind of like something closer to a Notes app or a document of some kind. But going full document leaves out a lot of dark mode, unless you like physically change your layout. So that's where the Notes app comes in, and it kind of gets somewhere in the middle, where you have some markdown stuff, but you also have dark mode. And well, something popped up in Vivaldi. They improved their notes a little bit, and so Vivaldi has a Notes app baked into the browser on the desktops that will sync. And it does all the stuff, right? It does the dark mode. It has Markdown compatibility. Now, I may not have just figured out how to get there. Dan was showing me right before the show that you can get two notes in
the mobile
Android.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm on iOS, and I don't know if it's not a feature or what. I haven't looked yet. I mean, he showed me, and I was like, well, I can't look yet.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe I can. And if I can, this might be my new Notes app.
Yeah, because the notes here, they sync across all your devices.
Right. Cross-platform.
Right.
I can have Vivaldi on every platform. I don't have to log in. Well, I do have to log into the sync. But the only other thing I can really do that with is Nextcloud.
There's a few apps that'll do it, right? But yeah, Nextcloud's one of them. Yep.
But on mobile, I have to kind of do some hoop jumping to make that work. or the Apple Notes app, right?
Mhm.
And I can log into the web interface to mess
Yeah.
with those notes. But on the web, you don't get a dark mode.
Right.
So I'm not happy about that.
One I've used a few times, actually quite a little bit, is Joplin. And Joplin supports different sync backends. Nextcloud could be your sync backend, or you basically supply your own sync backend. It could be Google Drive, it could be OneDrive on Microsoft, or it could be Nextcloud, or whatever. Right? You basically supply your own backend, and you can sync things across that way too. But you have to use their application, right? And it's not, so it's maybe not as convenient, right, as the Vivaldi browser has it built right in, and it will sync with all of everywhere you're signed into Vivaldi. So that's kind of cool,
right? Okay.
I don't know.
So this is something I have to look into this. So it's available on all the devices, even in the car. I think like Volvo.
Yeah, I think
somebody.
I think it's Volvo has Vivaldi browser, right? Yeah.
Volvo has Vivaldi.
I think that's the one. Maybe it's not, but I think it is. Yeah.
That's cool. Anyway, so that's something I'll be looking into. This is really cool.
I think so.
And apparently, Dan, we were looking at it a little while ago that you can just do straight Markdown or something. You'd mentioned something about Markdown.
Well, I noticed there was a Markdown little button there in the Notes app. So yes, I believe you can.
Cool. Yeah, because I was even looking at just like writing it in, exporting whatever I have as a doc and then using Pandoc to export it or to convert it to Markdown. I don't even mind doing that. I don't mind the rigmarole going through it as long as I can have something that is truly cross-platform. That's really what I'm after. But anyway, Vivaldi might do it. If Vivaldi does it, I think I'll stop the search and just be content and write. That's
cool.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
But Vivaldi might have it figured out.
Slick.
If you want to find all the links that we're talking about, all the Vivaldis and the Firefoxes and all the things that we're talking about, go to linuxuserspace.show. You find this episode, you find all the links. You can also find us on the YouTubes. The links are there too. And the TILvids on the history episodes, the links are there as well. If for some reason we forgot a link, though, you can reach out to us. You can go to linuxuserspace.show. You can click on the contact button and you can send us an email, or you could just email us directly at contact@linuxuserspace.show and say, hey, you forgot the link to this thing. I actually had somebody do that. They did it on Mastodon, though.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, I had somebody ask us about a link. I don't know why.
My bad.
Maybe we forgot.
My bad if I left it off.
I don't even think it was you.
I'm sorry.
Nope, I think it may have been I left it off when I was writing the stuff, so it never made it to the notes to make it to the doc.
I try to go back and plug in the holes that we missed, but
you do a great job.
I'm probably not perfect. No.
Well, neither am I. Apparently, at getting them in there in the first place.
Yeah, it's okay.
But this is why I want a good writing app so that I don't have to. So the reason I don't put I actually have a reason for this. The notes thing goes deeper than what I talked about. So when I'm writing in Markdown and I'm talking about historical things that happened, and I've got an archive.com or whatever, archive.org link, those things are massive, dude. And so in Markdown, you put the thing that you want to highlight as a link in square brackets,
right,
and then you put the link that you want it to move to in regular parens.
Right.
And that's all fine and good when the link is like our Vivaldi link earlier. It's pretty short, right? But then when you get to the archive links, those things like take up 3 lines in a page. And when you're like, I want to be able to read the Markdown
right
as I'm writing it, but the moment I have a link in there, it pulls me out. It de-immerses me, and it kind of breaks my concentration. And so what I took to doing the episode in question where that link didn't show up is I just started leaving them out. And then I said, okay, well, I have a list of links over here. I'll just go back and plug them in after I'm done so that I can have a nice writing experience. And that didn't happen. So I missed a couple, obviously. And that's what I mean. If I could have a good writing experience where the link is hidden, or if maybe HedgeDoc could hide them, or Nextcloud could hide them, or I could just hide them. in Markdown. That would be the best solution for me. But without that, I need something that's more in tune for writing than it is in tune for Markdown.
Because you can totally hide them. Obviously, you can switch to the reader mode, but it's reader mode, not writer mode.
But then I can't edit.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where Nextcloud comes in, where it's kind of like a reader mode and edit mode all smashed into one, but the links still bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So I need one step further. When I put the link in, hide the link, and then when I click on the little 3 dots or something, it exposes the link to how I can change it or edit it or whatever. Anyway, that was a tangent that didn't belong in housekeeping, but there you are. So go to linuxuserspace.show. And here's the thing. Those kinds of conversations happen all the time, before and after the show. So you only get access to that stuff when you hit the $5 tier on Patreon. So here's how I wrangle it all back in. Here's how. Yeah. So, Patreon, and you can hear more of those kinds of explanations, conversations, and why we put the stuff into the show that we put into the show. If you hit the $5 tier. If you do the $10 tier, you get the video. $5 just audio of all that. 10 is my stupid deer in headlights look.
Yeah. No, so you can pay the most and get the worst of Leo.
You know what? If that's not the tagline now, it needs to be. You can pay the most and get the worst. That's it. Absolutely it. I'm going to put that on Patreon later.
Oh, boy.
All right. On to some feedback. Let's talk about some feedback. We got Ian. Are you taking this? I feel like this is a damn thing.
So Ian writes in. He says, "Please do not forget about the Enlightenment desktop, a real game changer in the early days. Very much a front runner when it comes to window animations and graphical embellishments. This is on an era when hardware acceleration was in its infancy and Compiz was barely getting started. Seem very much in the image of SGI and their workstations and GUI embellishments." So, thanks, Ian. I don't think we're going to forget. I think it's one of the ones on the list. I don't know. I don't know how many we'll get through this season. I don't know where we're going, but
I don't either.
We've definitely got it on the list now. Anyway, if it wasn't before.
Yeah, you think we have a plan? We don't.
No, you might have just created it for us, which is cool.
Yeah, but Enlightenment came up. I did a little digging when we got this one in. Enlightenment came up right around the same time that XFCE and KDE came up. Enlightenment was right at that time, and then GNOME. So it's in there. It is in there. It's right in there. The one thing that I did, that I try to do before we jump in and say, yeah, we'll do the history of, Enlightenment is going to be very hard to track down. That's my only reservation about it at all, is that it's probably more like Slackware, where you got to find the release and the readmes in there, and then the dev chatter and the strife and the what happened and why is all.
Yeah, I feel like XFCE was a good one. Like it was all out there pretty well and easy to find ish.
Yeah, KDE. Yeah, I mean GNOME too.
Yeah,
the very public inflammation of tensions, very public, and we skipped over a whole lot. Yeah, so we still got to. I still try to cram it into 20 minutes and make it interesting. And KDE is shaping up to be the same way, where a lot of it was very, very public.
Right.
And Enlightenment just doesn't seem to have the same public vibe that everybody else had.
We haven't poked at it yet either, so I mean, there's that.
Once we do once I know where the KDE history is going to land, I think I'll be able to take a look at Enlightenment before we make our decision as where we're going next. But I mean, that doesn't mean that if we skip it, like if we go ahead, we can't come back. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
And like I said, I don't know how many we're going to get to this season even.
Yeah. So maybe a next season thing.
It could be.
Yeah, Enlightenment seems more difficult than the others, that's for sure.
It seems like something we should cover, though.
If anybody knows where I can dig up Enlightenment history. Like if there's a nice central trove of stuff, a forum or something like that, you gotta let me know. And if you can, that's gonna really shoot up the "Are we gonna do enlightenment or not" thing. So we'll see how that goes. We didn't forget about it.
And interestingly, they did have a recent release, back in December. So I'll make sure to link that up in the show notes as well. So
0.26.0 on December 23rd. It was like a Christmas release.
Yeah.
And really task previews, watermarks, all kinds of good stuff.
It looks pretty. I don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
It's got that.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. But that was Budgie's whole thing. They were going to move to EFL. Enlightenment.
And they backed out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So did they officially do that?
I don't know if it's official. I don't know how official that was, but I feel like they're backing down anyway.
Yeah, when it seemed to me that about 6 months ago they really started to distance themselves away from saying EFL or enlightenment or leaving the GTK ecosphere. Like, it seemed like they really, really did that. But there was a lot of strife at that time. And,
it's hard to say where that's going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be interesting if they still go EFL. It would be a real shakeup, that's for sure. But and I'll watch it with interest. Because Budgie is on the long list
on the list.
What are we gonna? Yeah. So I got to pay attention to it.
Yeah. So Vidar writes, "Hey guys, I discovered your show a while ago and ended up binging all the episodes. Ooh, yeah.
They've changed a lot.
Yeah, he says it's just that good. I'm especially enjoying the history stuff. You're making me a bit Linux curious here. Now, I ain't saying I'm getting ready to nuke my FreeBSD desktop running
Don't do that.
Running Plasma, by the way.
That's a new development, by the way.
Yeah, and so anytime soon. But you got me trying different distros and virtual machines." Says, I wish you joyful holidays, and I'm looking forward to more episodes in the new year. So here we are, more episodes, and thanks for listening to all of those. I mean, that's fantastic. And Leo's right. I think we have changed quite a little bit, and it's good. I'm glad you're here. I hope you stay.
And we're getting back on that horse now, but I got to talk about, just for a sec, the BSD thing. So Plasma wasn't a thing in the BSDs?
No, it is a thing.
So I've been seeing a whole lot of maybe it's an open BSD.
Oh, maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but
yeah, because I've been seeing a whole lot of hullabaloo about and it's always been about OpenBSD, the pufferfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
About now on current you can get Plasma.
Mm-hmm.
And someone brought that up in the Discord too, where I think it was I was like, wait, is this Plasma 5 or Plasma 6? And I think we settled on Plasma 5.
Yeah.
So, but this is maybe not in FreeBSD, maybe in OpenBSD, but this is a new development in parts of BSD land, and that's just really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So now they have Plasma 5, Plasma 6 win.
Well, probably soon. I don't know, but at least I think at least as far as FreeBSD, I think they're on the latest version of 5, and then maybe they have maybe they've got some staging things where they're working on the 6 stuff too as well. But I know 5 and Plasma over in FreeBSD have been a thing for a while. So
okay, all right. So there's something new about it, and lots of BSD folks are excited about it. So I need to dig in a little further and figure out what that actually is. But I really respect the port system over on FreeBSD, and it really, really reminds me a lot about a lot of Gentoo and dealing and Slackware.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate the BSDs. That's really cool.
Someday. Yes.
I said this when I put it in there. I was like, I don't even know what this name is, but I'm going to...
Yeah, it's a username. So Zembu? I'm going to say Zembu.
I'm going to go with Zgembo.
Zgembo. Okay. I was going silent on the G, but that's fine.
All right. You're closer to people, French-speaking people, and that happens a lot. I get it.
So Gnome, I don't know. It's not wrong either way. So
you're getting real meta on us. I get it.
yeah. So anyway, Zgembu 121 writes, Vanilla GNOME really grew on me. I used to be a guy with 10 extensions, tinkering all the time, but no more. With Debian 12, it's a very stable environment. All I added was the maximize button and open new window centered. So that's it. Like and Leo, you said you could get by with like no extensions.
I can. I'll do it with Fedora.
And wow, I struggle.
You're going to say the app indicators. I know you are. Because
absolutely. I need those.
Discord's annoying and Telegram is annoying when you close the windows and they're gone, but they're not.
Yeah.
GNOME has this thing now where like in the little panel top right, it'll say, hey, there's this, like iconless thing running in the background now. So they're warming up to the idea that you need to be able to deal with apps that don't necessarily X to the tray. And
I could get by if they made a workable thing, and I think they're working on it. It's just not quite 100% there yet. So for now, I still like my app indicators, and who carries those is Ubuntu and their implementation, and I really like.
That's what I run too.
I really like what they deliver. I don't need to add a whole bunch of stuff, but a couple extensions are kind of where it's at, and I agree. Like I don't want 10 or 15 different extensions to do things. And I think as time's gone on, I think GNOME's gotten better where you don't need all of those. They've reintegrated some of those things and the needs for extensions, or at least that's been my observation. It's not perfect, but I don't need as many as I used to. So
well, they're taking on what they can actually develop, what they can actually keep up with. And it's a super important thing to do.
Sustainability
in a desktop environment
is important. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can't maintain it, it doesn't need to be there because it's gonna get crufty and it's gonna get bad.
Yeah. Don't take on technical debt.
Yep. So Z, I really agree with you. I think GNOME is in a very good state to be used as is. There are some rough corners. I mean, as with any desktop, but I think I agree with you, man. GNOME's good. GNOME's really good, especially now.
And so to round out the Reverb Focus, SpaceLem writes, I started with GNOME 2.4 ? Around 2003. I stuck with it until 3 came out, and then I jumped ship to Cinnamon, where I've been ever since. The one time I tried 3, I found it very confusing and didn't know how to make it work. Maybe in 2024, I might take another look at it.
Yeah.
It's still really different. Like if you're not used to it, it's not quite the same. And if you're happy with Cinnamon, I don't know. That's not a bad place to land, I don't think.
Yeah. It's a pretty big departure from Cinnamon. I mean, Cinnamon has this very Windows-centric kind of situation by default. And GNOME decidedly does not. Like
no, really not. And it's
at all.
It's not like anything else. It's unique.
Yeah. If I had to say it's closest to something, I'd guess I'd say it's closest to Mac OS, but that's doing it a disservice.
Yeah, it's not even that.
You go in expecting things, and it's not that either. So, but it's 100%. I mean, as I was saying before, I mean, I can really get along with it, but you do have to come in with this is a new desktop environment. This is not GNOME 2, and it's barely GNOME 3, and
yeah, it's really different.
So.
And so like there's some things that are kind of nice that I like, but not everybody does, right? So the workspaces overview stuff and the way you can,
I like that.
I like it too. And your applications overview, all of those things are kind of great. But not everybody likes that. So I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to land there. I mean, some people don't like hot corners and some people do. I mean,
luckily you can turn some of that off, but
you can, but I'm just saying, like some things are, and if you're happy with where you're at, I just say use that. I don't know if you need to.
Well,
I mean, go ahead, try. but I don't know that you need to feel the impetus to depart from that if it's working for you.
Well, we all get that bug eventually.
Oh, yeah.
When you're using one, but there are 7 other alternatives, you're like, I wonder if those are better. And they may not be better, but I do think they're worth a try.
And that's fair. That's fair.
So, yeah, I mean, give it a shot. I mean, I would say if you're looking for not a huge departure, I would say try GNOME on Ubuntu, because they stuff it full of a couple of extensions that would make the stay on GNOME a whole lot easier. But I mean, if you're looking for something totally different, a GNOME install on Endeavor or like a Fedora that's GNOME. That's GNOME. So try that. Oh yeah, even Debian.
That's Debian would be. Yeah, no
unadulterated GNOME. But if you want new GNOME, I guess that's Fedora and Arch and all that.
Yeah, and if you want something totally different, more like Windows, you probably could go like Zorin, right? That's got the Windows spin to it a little bit.
Well, we were talking about Zorin Grid in the chats, so that would be fun just for that.
Mm-hmm.
If it ever
ever materializes, that'd be great.
If it happens.
Yeah, no. Thanks for all the feedback. Thanks. Keep them coming, and we'll try to get them into the show and answered or at least read. Up next is Community Focus, and so with this, not a real long one here, but like I want to highlight a YouTube channel that I found, DB Tech, and this is great for the self-hosting crowd, although not totally just self-hosting. I mean, if you're into the Raspberry Pi type things, or Docker stuff, or Portainer, or any of that stuff, or even if it just sounds interesting, maybe you want to try self-hosting some things. Like I know we do that. It's great. I think it's a great channel. I think one of the recent videos that I highlighted to you, Leo, was this tool called Dodge, I think is the way it's pronounced. It's a little different. Basically, it's like a Portainer alternative, but like a lot simpler and a lot lighter weight. Wouldn't be something that you'd use for teams, but it might be great for just you and your home lab. So that
it feels very French because it's Doc GE, right? So it's like Dodge.
Yeah, Dodge.
Okay, if you speak French, you gotta come in here and tell me how to pronounce this thing. Because
yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, you're the closest guy I know.
Yeah, what I know is mostly slang. Just saying.
That's the first step to learning a language. Okay,
I know enough to be dangerous. But anyway, I think this channel is great. I think there's a lot of home lab type things and self-hosted stuff, and obviously segues into Linux, which is what we do here on this channel. So
when I was digging through, I noticed he had a lot of content on the Zima board stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a few episodes ago. This was something I was super interested in. I didn't have an extra $150 to throw at it at the time, but now I'm looking at a, I don't know, really an all-around device that I could ultimately just leave as a router if I needed. Because, I always think about that, right? Like contingency-wise.
Mm-hmm.
What if the router explodes at Saturday 10 p.m.? Everything's closing up. I don't have time, and I really don't want to be without the internet when I'm, trying to relax and go to bed or whatever. So, what would I do? And, how long would it take me? It would take me 30 minutes to get Zima board up on a pfSense with a basic firewall going so that I could just get stuff.
And then go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Once the adrenaline has died down we got to get this done as fast as possible.
Right.
But it's, I do think about that, and I don't just have a copy of every device. So I can't just, copy over a config and plug it in.
Right.
So his Zima board content has been really, really good. And I've also been looking at another device. Dan, you remember the name of it, but I couldn't. It started with a P.
Protectly.
Protectly. Yeah, that's right. Because they have a lot of different, heat sink monstrosities with like 4 to 8 WAN ports or LAN ports, whatever. So I appreciate content like DB Tex because he starts trudging on the content that I really like to see, and that is, really just self-hosting stuff, honestly.
Mhm.
How much would it take to run a Nextcloud on a device and, have a separate device or be able to get another device like that and swap it in and out. So I really appreciate that kind of stuff, and his stuff is really, really interesting too. So yeah, DB Tech, man, check it out. It's really good
It's
stuff.
good stuff. And so, he's got a review webpage as well as the YouTube. And so, the webpage kind of backs it up as a reference as well. And
Does the whole nine.
and so, like, any of the commands and stuff that he's entering in, he'll post that on the page in a blog type format. And so that, it helps. And it's not just all, shouting at you through the YouTubes. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of beats scrubbing through the video multiple times over and over again.
Right.
Just to get a link or to get a reference or something like that. So that really helps a lot.
Yeah. And I think he breaks it down well enough that everybody, can follow along and understand, hopefully. So I think it's one of my favorites.
Gentoo Focus. So I wanted to shout out Biku because he had emailed us about Gentoo going binary.
Right.
So before we get into how Gentoo went over the break, I want to talk about this for a minute because Gentoo going binary is the antithesis of what Gentoo is about, but not really, is it? Because we've had binary Firefox for a while and binary kernels and
there's a few other packages. Yeah, I think like Rust is also a binary. Probably some of those heavier programming language type things are binaries that you can get as well. So, this is not the whole thing, right? This is just a lot of the core stuff is binary. Available as binary, and so you can go you can still go compile the whole thing all to your heart's content if that's what you want.
This does not change what Gentoo is at all.
It does not, but it does add some flexibility, and especially if you're trying to get your system up kind of in a hurry, because it saves you a lot of that compile time for those core things, and you can get your system launched off the ground and going, as you can just download those binary packages and you don't have to worry about compiling because somebody else has already done that for you.
Yep. I think that's super important. And it's really cool to be able to get a system up quickly. And then once you start doing fancy use flag things or installing weird packages that depend on other packages, then of course you start doing the whole compile thing.
Yep.
But I do appreciate that, had this come out when we started the Gentoo challenge, that it would have been something totally, absolutely different than it is now. But I like the off ramp. So if I need something basic, I can get it going, and it's really kind of starting to encroach on some of those super slim Arch installs that people like to use. So this is what, Arch stable?
It's got some maybe some crossover there potentially, but I see a lot of good things being posted, especially in places like Reddit and whatnot. That people are saying, "Oh, thank you for doing this. It's sped my installation time up by a ton, and I can still I still have the basic principles of Gentoo, but save me a lot of time." And so I know a lot of people will say, all right, well, what about the performance of that stuff? Honestly, I don't know. That's something that we are going to talk about, I hope, in our final episode of the season, is like, what the overall performance is. Yeah. But in reality, I think you're just shaving off little percentage points here and there.
Milliseconds, yeah.
It's small amounts that you're probably actually improving things. Ultimately, it makes you feel better, knowing that you compiled stuff the way you wanted it, and it's a feel good thing. So nothing wrong with that. It's totally within your purview, and I feel like that's great. But going with the binary packages, you really don't suffer too much.
Nah, I don't think you do. But speaking of packages, though, maybe your grub package needs to be taking a quick look at that package because something happened.
Something happened, and I don't know what I did, and it was probably my lack of paying attention in a hurry up type of thing. I was just trying to
on a Gentoo? How dare you?
About a week ago, I was trying to just kind of. About the Christmas time, right after Christmas, actually, I was like, well,
too much eggnog. Too much eggnog.
I was like, the show's coming. I really need to get my Gentoo updated, and I haven't done that in a while, so I should do that. And we skipped a week, so I was like, well, we're really deep into it at this point. So I did that, and I thought things all went fine, and then I rebooted, and I landed myself back into BIOS.
Uh-oh.
Because it didn't detect anything bootable as far as a hard disk. And I don't know if I filled up my boot partition, or it didn't write, or it totally deleted my boot partition. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, you're faster than stable, so you definitely have more kernels than I do. That's for sure.
And maybe that's my problem. Maybe I just filled it up and I didn't delete things appropriately and paid attention to that. That could be. It is probably a me problem, and I've probably created this. And my lack of paying attention is what landed me here.
Well, the most seasoned Gentoo users would tell you that that's true, I'm sure.
And that's fine. I'll take the blame because I probably am guilty. I will say it's not the machine, it's not the hard drive, because I did get the live USB plugged in, and I booted to that, and I can see the drive, and I know that's okay. I just haven't messed with it. I know I need to get back in there and either delete out some kernels and reinstall my bootloader or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got a little fixing to do.
Well, I don't have any fixing to do. I left off the last, where we left off during the last live stream, which was I installed Network Manager. That went a whole lot better than I expected. I expected to have to get up and physically reboot the machine and, do some rebinding or something or other. But I mean, the little DHCPCD remove, we were cautious about it. I mean, you can see it in the live stream.
We did it well.
Yep. It's up on YouTube if you want to go watch those things happen live. But we were cautious about it. We turned everything off with DHCPCD. We installed Network Manager, got that all compiled, got all the things plugged up, ready to go, made the switch, did a reboot, and bingo bango, Bob's your uncle, we were able to log back into it. So it was a seamless transition over to Network Manager, which meant that I could then use Wi-Fi, because up until this point, up until that last live stream, I had to be hardwired in. That was the only way to do any kind of...
You probably could have done some command line foo to get your Wi-Fi, but that's no fun.
IWL Wi-Fi would have worked just fine, but no.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to use only what was exposed to me in the GUI, and Wi-Fi was not exposed in the GUI. It was like a Wahoo.
Yeah, so, I mean, you got the GNOME desktop, you might as well use it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're 99% of the way to a usable desktop. There's nothing that I can't do that I normally do in a day. The one thing that I think modern systems would expect that I don't have is Bluetooth. So that's likely going to be where the next live stream goes. We'll get Bluetooth compiled and installed and figured out and all that, because it's all part of the same firmware. That was our hang up. I couldn't, even after we got Network Manager installed, I couldn't get to Wi-Fi because the firmware, I never installed the Intel firmware.
Which you did now.
I do have it in now, and it did show up after a reboot. I didn't want to reboot because that was when the switchover was going to happen, and I wasn't confident that was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to reboot, but we ended up rebooting anyway, and Network Manager just worked just fine. And then Wi-Fi was there. I was able to use that, but I don't have... There's some Bluetooth modules. I think I just need a Bluetooth manager. I need something to manage it, because I think the firmware is already there. I think the firmware is open enough that it's in the Intel firmware thing.
Yeah, probably.
So I think it's in there, But I guess we'll see on the next live stream. So tune into that. The live stream happens live the day after a show drops, which will be
this show. The day after this show.
I have to look at the calendar. This show will drop on Monday the 8th, and our live stream will be Tuesday the 9th.
Tuesday the 9th.
If you ever see us pop up in your podcast, whatchamajiggy, and it's like, oh, I don't have time to listen to these dudes for an hour, if it's the next day, you can come in and chat with us live. So we do that whole live stream thing, and if you can't catch it, we always post those out on YouTube as well, so you can catch it there.
All right, Leo. I think that's the end of the show, as they say. And
I guess so.
Here we are. So next time, we are going to talk about the history of KDE and KDE Plasma.
Two distinct things nowadays. They didn't used to be, but they are now.
Yeah, early days, like the desktop was actually named KDE, and now it Now it is the Plasma desktop. So
that is correct.
We're going to talk about that, and that's on our history thing. We'll have a few thoughts, and whatever else we can cram in this show.
Yeah, which will probably be way too much, just like this show.
Yeah. So in between shows, you can catch us on Twitter, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Discord, Lemmy. Don't forget about Lemmy.
Yeah.
Give us some suggestions, and we can, carry on a conversation like humans on both ends. It's amazing.
It's a human thing.
So, talk to us. Give us some ideas, and we'll have all the links and stuff in linuxuserspace.show. So where can we find you, Leo?
Oh, you can find me over at Mastodon on mastodon.social. So you can find me at Leo Chavez at mastodon.social. Still over on the X thing, so at Leo Chavez over there as well.
All right, and you can find me at KC2BEZ at mastodon.social. And I'm still over there on X as well, so at KC2BEZ over there. Come back in a couple of weeks for more Linux User Space.
We'll see you then.
We'll see you.
Bye.
I'll let you check out my keyboard while we're here.
That's so cool, man.
Just look at it. It's kind of a thick little fella. It is heavy,
That's a
too.
thick boy. I love it.
It is. And it's kind of heavy. It has some weight to it.
There's aluminum in there, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably the base.
Are you using it wirelessly?
I am using it wirelessly.
Oh, my God. You're in 2024.
It has a dongle. It comes with a dongle.
Wow.
It's a 2.4 gig dongle. So it's got its own thing.
Oh, so it's not Bluetooth.
Oh, but wait. It has that, too. There's a little knob here, and you can switch it to off, so you can plug it in wired, or you can use it with the Bluetooth if you switch it to Bluetooth, or you can use the 2.4 gig dongle. So I'm using it on my desktop. I don't have any Bluetooth here, so that's why I'm using it.
Because you haven't compiled it on Gentoo in your Linux box that you're using to record today?
It's a desktop. It does not have Bluetooth. It doesn't. So that's why I'm using the dongle on this. I got some programmable buttons up here. And obviously,
yeah, so those don't do anything yet.
Probably not. No.
Push it. What does it do?
I guess we are done with the show, huh?